talking about two issues. One point is that the idea that the neshama comes down here, it reaches to a higher level than what it came down below, and that's the meaning of the Shmiras Haner da Neshama, Shmiras Haner da Torah. He's not just not transgressing the tzivui of the Torah, but we also get an idea of the kiyum of the Torah. And another point is that we spoke about that why do we need to have Aaron? And in a similar vein, we need to have Torah to be able to bring the neshama up to a level that would normally have these oideras. And wishing to go upwards, seemingly that's something that's had even in the natural state of the neshama. But we said, since the neshama is the biyah, come down into this world, so that blocks on that rotzui, on that aliyah that the neshama has on its own, and you need to have Aaron and also Torah to be able to bring up to that higher level, to be able to reveal it. So the Rebbe also asked, why do the neshamas of Atzilus need the level of the level of Torah, the level of the aliyah? Since they have begilui, we said before, they have begilui the aliyah lamayla. So now the Rebbe goes on and says, and that was the question essentially of the Maimer of the Rebbe Marash about this. So on line 11 on the 5th page, he says, well, Pizatzar Lahavin, according to what we just now mentioned, we have to understand Mashakasa by Maimer, what's written in the Maimer. The Zesh Shmiras Haner the Neshama. He ide Shmiras Haner the Torah, the fact that the protection, the guarding of the candle of the neshama is through the guarding of the candle of the Torah. If you guard my candle, Hashem says, then I will guard your candle. And why is that so? So he connects it with the Eila that it says, Eila and Eila, Ki Eila Shmois Bnei Yisrael, that it says that these are the names of Bnei Yisrael, Oimdim B'schus Eila Eides V'Chokim Mishpatim. They are standing in the merit of what it says, these Eila to Eila of the mitzvahs. The Lechurim, seemingly, the Zeshi Yisrael, the mitzvahs HaTorah v'mitzvahs, the fact that the Eden are standing in the merit of Torah and mitzvahs, Hu Shayidei Kiyum HaTorah mitzvahs, Hemes Alim L'Madrega Nalas Yoser, we said, that through fulfilling Torah mitzvahs, the Eden are elevated and ascended to a much higher level. But the level of the Neshamas Yisrael on their own, it seems to be that's independent, that doesn't need Torah. When we just take the literal meaning of the words, if you will protect my candle, I'll protect your candle. Sheshmiras haner da neshama, protecting the candle of the neshama. Hainu dargis haner da neshama tzadatzma. We're talking about you're protecting the candle of the neshama itself. We're not talking here about an elevation to a higher level. Why the shmiras haner the Torah is through the protecting of the candle of the Torah. We can explain this according to the statement of the Zohar that's brought down in Tanya. The K'moisha Oid Haner Eina Meir V'Nechaz B'Psila B'li Shemen. This is the Maimer HaYinuka that Alter Rebbe spoke about and then concluded Tanya with. Just like the fire of a candle does not shine and does not hold on to the wick unless there is oil to fuel the fire on the wick. So the Ekein Eina Shchina Shoyd Al Gufa Adam, so to the Shchina, which is likened to the fire of the Hashem Elokecha Eish Oichlu, like the Alter Rebbe says, he's a consuming fire. So the Shechina is not Shoyd Al Gufa Adam, it does not rest upon the body of a person. Shenim Shol Psila, the body of the person is likened to a wick. So you have the fire, which is the Shechina, you have the body of the person, which is a wick. So you need fuel, Elai de Maisim Toivim Shenim Shol Hashem, and only through good deeds are likened to oil. Now the question is, why is that necessary? Why shouldn't the neshama be sufficient fuel to be able to have the Shekhinah rest upon the person's body, upon the wick? It's explained in Tanya. The fact that the resting of the Shekhinah upon the body of a person is only through fulfilling mitzvahs and good deeds. Top of page Yud, it's insufficient with his neshama it's not sufficient with his neshama. It's a part of Hashem above, that it should be like oil to a wick, because the soul of the person, even the Alter Rebbe says, even the neshama of a tzaddik gomer, Oived Hashem beyira va'avav tanugim, serving Hashem with awe and a love of delight, which is the highest level of love. Eina betela b'mesias lagamri, it's not completely nullified to Hashem. Rakudavar b'fnei atzma yirei Hashem va'oyavai, it's considered a separate entity that fears Hashem and loves Hashem. V'mitzvah shem pnimis ritzonis baruch, but the mitzvahs, on the other hand, contrast the neshama with the mitzvahs, are the inner will of Hashem. So therefore, ein achayis shebehem, the vitality that's in the mitzvahs, is not davar nifrad b'fnei atzmei klal. It's not at all something separate, not even the separation of the neshama of a tzaddik. It's united and subsumed in His will. And therefore, the resting of the Shekhinah on the body of a person, specifically through the fulfillment of mitzvahs. The idea of the residing of the Shekhinah in a particular matter, in a particular thing. What does it mean that the Shekhinah rests on it? What's the definition of that concept? That thing upon which the Shekhinah rests becomes subsumed in the light of Hashem and is completely bottled to Hashem. Only then it rests and becomes revealed and shines in Him, the one Eibishter. So now, based on this idea, that we just now explained that even the neshama of a tzaddik is insufficient to be able to act as fuel for the fire of the Shekhinah resting upon him. Now we can understand why even the level of tzaddikim, even the neshamas, the atzilus, need to have the idea of Torah. According to this, we can explain that the protecting the candle of the neshama is through the protecting of the candle of Torah. When we protect the candle of Torah, so Hashem protects our neshama. What does it mean, the candle of the neshama? It's bittul to Hashem. The ultimate level, the most perfect level of the bittul of the neshama, where it's completely bottled to Hashem, why the kiyum of mitzvahs is through fulfilling mitzvahs. That's why the candle of the neshama is called your candle, the candle of a human being. And the candle of Torah mitzvahs is called my candle of Hashem, which is a question that the Rebbe asked at the beginning of the Maimer. It seems to be that it says Neir Havai Nishmas Adam. We say that the soul of a person is Hashem's candle, and here we're saying no, that the Neir of the neshama, Hashem is calling it Neir Cha, and I'm protecting your candle. So whose candle is the neshama? Is the neshama Hashem's candle, Neir Havai Nishmas Adam, or is it Neir Cha that Hashem is protecting? Because the bittul of the neshama on its own, without Torah mitzvahs, is not a total bit. That's why it's called Neir Chada Adam. It's called your candle. It's you. It's not me. It's not Hashem. On the other hand, Vaner the mitzvahs, meaning the Neir of Torah that I said before, that the person has to protect and guard. Shehu Pnimis Ritzoini Yisborach, that's the innermost will of Hashem. Unedi HaKadosh Baruch Hu is considered my candle of Hashem. But we have a way of meshing them together. Through a person fulfilling the mitzvahs. So now this bittul comes down also into neshama, and that's what it means. Ani meshamer es nercha. I, Hashem, am coming down to your candle. I say, line 24, to note, the Maimer al Shaykh Chag HaShavuos, the above mentioned Maimer is associated with the Yom Tov of Shavuos. The noise will say Parshas Baha'alotch Saneres Halchos HaMaimer Koirin Lach the Chag HaShavuos. In addition to the fact that this week's Parshas Baha'alotch is read always after Shavuos, sometimes one Parsha, or sometimes two Parshas later, the Rebbe says the footnote, just like the Rebbe says, just like sometimes Midbar is read immediately before Shavuos, and sometimes it's read 2 weeks before Shavuos. So in other words, when is Parshas Naso read, that determines if Baha'alotch is immediately after Shavuos or 2 weeks after Shavuos. Anyway, so he says, so in addition to the fact that the Parshas Baha'alotch always comes after Shavuos, it's also in the Maimer of the Rebbe Marash. It says in that Maimer, Parshas Baha'alotch Nirsham Baschos HaMaimer. It's written, it's noted at the beginning of that Maimer, that the Maimer of Baha'alotch of the year Tafresh Chav Tes of the Rebbe Marash is connected with the Maimer that Rebbe Marash said on Shavuos in the Vaydaber Anochi. So the Rebbe therefore is going to connect this all with the topic of Shavuos. According to this, we could say the Zesh and Mevur, the Maimer, top of Yiralf. Shaydei Kiyum HaTorah mitzvahs Nasal Liyam in Neshama, that through fulfilling Torah mitzvahs now becomes an ascent in the Neshama, higher than it was before it came down. It's similar to the advantage, quality, and ascent that happens in the Yidden as a result of Matan Torah that they did not have prior to Matan Torah. So the Rebbe explains whom the idea behind this is the Avat Tivi Shebechol Echad Misrael, the innate natural love within each and every Yid, leads Dovik B'Hashem, to be cleaving in Hashem, not to be separated from Him under any circumstance. Even in a total self-sacrifice, he's willing to give up his life for Hashem, not to tear himself away from Hashem. So that natural love, that innate love, is not what the Torah came for. This existed even prior to Matan Torah. This love is something that we inherited from our forefathers, from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And therefore, since it's inherited from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and they existed before Matan Torah, so therefore, a Yid had this Ava Tivis, this Ava Mesuteres, not to be torn away from Hashem, already prior to Matan Torah. And he's going to connect it with another concept of bittul that the Avos had, that we also have prior to Matan Torah. According to what's written in Tanya, the Zesha Avos Harishu L'chol Echad Miyisrael Avazu Shayach LeZesha Avos Heiner Markava. The fact that the Avos gave every single Yid this unbelievable love, this love of that he's willing to give up his life for Hashem, is a result of, and because the Avos were Merkavet Hashem, because they were a chariot to Hashem, a vehicle for Hashem. So now he's going to define the idea of a vehicle and a chariot. The Inin Amarkava, she betel. What's the idea of a vehicle? That it's nullified to the rider. The reason why the chariot, the horses, for example, goes according and follows the will of its rider, of its driver, It's not part of their desire that they want to have a connection with the writer, which would be the example of the innate love. Not like the innate love, that the innate love is the will that he should be cleaving to Hashem, but rather the idea of Merkava is it's because they are nullified, they are sublimated to the writer. So therefore, based on that, the Rebbe is now going to join the concept of Ava Mesuteres and the idea of Merkava. He says in line 15, after the brackets, Shloimer, we could say, in this innate love, that the reason why we have this innate love is a result of the Yerusha, the inheritance that it has from the forefathers who are a vehicle for Hashem. Klula behelam gam ha'ava shebchinas bittul is included in a concealed manner, the love that's the state of bittul, not the love that I do not want to be separated from Hashem, but a greater bittul in the love. She'eina roitze la'atz miklal. He doesn't want anything for himself. V'chol ritzoynei, whose entire will is she'yegilei lakus ba'olam. There should be a revelation of godliness in the world. And all he wants is what Hashem wants, which is Hashem wants to have a home down here below. So his love is such that he wants to have Hashem's will be fulfilled. That's what he's all about. So he says in the last paragraph, line 22, it's known, the Ava v'arotz and the Adam ha'oyev. When we talk about love, love is the love and the will of the person, of the one that loves. Therefore, gam kisha'ava v'arotz and shaloyu shiyushlam b'tzayin elyon. Even when we find this deeper type of love, that the love is not about my being connected, but the love is, I love Hashem so much that I want His will to be fulfilled. Mikol makom, still in all, etzem inyan ha'ava v'arotzen hu metzias. The very nature of love, the very nature of will, that already makes the person who is having that love, that already indicates that it's a metzias. He is something. He is a thing that loves Hashem. But he loves Hashem, so Hashem's purpose should be fulfilled in this world. As opposed to that, the true idea of bittul is, top of page Yud Beis, the avoid of the Kabbalah's oil and the avoid of the accepting of the yoke. That's like a servant that has no independent will whatsoever. He has no will that of his own. And everything he does is only because the yoke, the obligation, the responsibility to the master that lays upon the shoulder of the servant. It's not about him. That as a result of his Kabbalah's oil, he's forced to fulfill the will of the master. The Rebbe goes even deeper now. Via Shloimer, we could say the kivim shebitl amarkava la roichev. Uloi mitzad harotzen da markava, since the nullification of the vehicle to the rider is not, like we said before, because of the will of the vehicle. Like we said, it's not that the horses want to be bottled. It wants to be nullified to the rider and wants to be a vehicle to it. But rather it's all from and because of the rider. Therefore, in our inheritance from the forefathers that are the Merkava, is kolol gam behelam gam abitl. The Kabbalah's oil is included, also concealed the bittul of the Kabbalah's oil. Not just that we have the love that we don't want to be separated, and not just that we have a love that we want only what Hashem wants, that there should be a dir of tachtoinim, But even more so, since the Avos were Merkava, so what they gave over to us B'Yerusha is also this complete sublimation of self, the bitl of Kabbalah's oil. So the Rebbe says in the brackets, Lahoyin to note, Maimer Rebbe saying Nuzal, from what the Chazal say, B'Shoshek Dim Yisrael Nasal Nishmachulu, when the Yidden prefaced and said, we will do before we will hear or understand or listen, Mi Gila Lebone Razeh, Hashem said, who revealed to my children this secret? So what's the idea of a secret? Before B'Chsidus explained the Chsidus. The fact that they prefaced Nasa before Nishma, meaning Nasa before Nishma means the bittul to the master of the will instead of the bittul to the actual wills. How did they get to that level? How did they get to that high level of Kabbalah soil that we said before, that it's completely sublimating itself? Why they gilui the avim soteris, which is raz. The secret means something that's concealed. We know that the concealed love is called concealed. That means that avim soteris goes on raz. So that means that embedded, concealed, hidden within the avim soteris is not just the greater love, like we said before, they just wants what Hashem wants, but even more so the Kabbalah's oil, where it's not about him at all. So the question is, how do they fit together? Avim Soteris is about me, like we said before. The Kabbalah's oil is totally about Hashem. How did those two things go together? So he says in line 14, Yesh Leimer, we could say, Shashayich is the Avim Soteris Metzias, like Domus Nasal and Nishma Bittul Kabbalah's oil, the connection of the concealed love, which is about his Metzias, to the idea of Nishma, which is the bittul of Kabbalah's soil, is ki avim stares ibirusha me'avis hein merkava, because since the concealed love is inherited from the forefathers, and the forefathers were a state of merkava, they had this level of bittul in a way of a complete nullification of self. It wasn't about their love or their will, just like the merkava doesn't have any will of its own. Moving from this understood, from all of this understood, that bittul shenimshach b'Yisrael b'matan Torah. La'achrei sheikdimu la'naisel anishma u'bittul na'al yoser gama bittul merkava. Where we still not figured out what that is, but he's saying he's building up and higher. They have Avim Soteris before Matan Torah, even more so because they got it from the Avos that were Merkava, so they have a love where they want to do and make for Hashem Adir B'Tachtoinim. And even more so because of the Merkava part, they have a bittul in the way of Kabbalah's oil, which they said before Matan Torah, Nasa before Nishma. So therefore, there must be a higher state of bittul that follows Matan Torah, something beyond even that level of the bittul of Kabbalah's oil of Nasa before Nishma, the bittul of Merkava, because those were all available before Matan Torah, so there must have been something greater and higher already at the time of Matan Torah. And by explaining the difference between that, we will also explain the difference that has the ilui and the advantage that happens in the neshama through the fulfillment of mitzvahs, versus the advantage and ilui that happens in the neshama or the neshama itself before having the milah of Torah and mitzvahs.